start again here now. And I think some people are a little bit late for the lunch, so they will come. The next post of the program is "As long we are happy," as an official view on the Europeans. It's the Swedish designer Villette and the French architect Alexandre Poppe. They met and founded a design studio in Paris in 2001. And 2 years later, they discovered the west coast of Norway, as so many other foreigners, and through an artist residency, where they imagined and built the design center Transplant. And the Swedish-French design duo is dedicated to give each design a sense of meaning and personality for international clients that use design strategically. Making environment and objects understandable and desirable. They both also teach at the National Academy of Art and Design in Bergen. So welcome to you, Birgitta Ralston and Alexander Poppe.
Bonjour. Hi.
So I'm Swedish. And you are French, and we live in Norway. Yeah, since this picture was taken actually. This is 14 years ago, and it shows us driving our big truck from Paris up to Snøhetta, which has 1,000 inhabitants. So if you talk about culture shock, we lived it, totally. And actually, this past or this background makes us overly, or more than ordinary, curious and interested in cultural differences. And we use that in our work. For instance, in Idea Lab, Idea Lab is a research through design program where we invite other creatives to work with us on different social issues. And the last years, we've been working with something we call replanted identity. And it's how can you take in a local society the people that live there from forever with the ones that come in, and how can we create a new identity? That's what we research together. And we discovered that what you need to do is to share something, a core. And that's what our talk is about today. We're going to talk about what do we share in the different nationalities, or what we found out, and then we can have a discussion about if we were right or not.
Yeah, that could be fun.
Yeah. And another thing that's very important is also that it's in Delegation, it's in movement. It's not something static, like we share this and it will be like that forever. No, it's in movement. And the last thing that then happens is that you belong. So that's what we searched for, and we worked around with other creatives. So here you see some examples of that work. It's urban furniture and lighting. For instance, these two, it's from Tøyen. We worked this autumn in Tøyen, which is a diverse neighborhood. And we realized that the people are very engaged, and they do a lot of things outside, but it's not always easy with the weather. So we created urban furniture that makes rooms and give you shelter, and a big sun that also shelters you and give light. And with you have Betonis Hage, it's a very green area actually, and we put a garden on top of these little roofs. Here is other projects we've done, and in every one of them there is some cultural connection. For instance, the two products up here, they are inspired by the people on the west coast of Norway, where you have very rough weather and wind, and that affects the nature and it affects the people. And this is what we wanted to transmit in these products. First, before I do that, also this last year we had the opportunity with Scandinavian Business City to travel to 8 countries and interview Yes, and then I will give the word
Yeah.
to Alex.
I don't know. Do we need a mic? Or is it fine like that?
It's better if you do the mic because the streaming part, nobody will hear anything.
Okay.
I forgot.
Okay. Hello, the streaming. Okay, it's good you are there because here we are only 4 people. Just kidding, just kidding. Enjoy your coffee then. What you just said, Birgitta, now we're going to go through, actually we're just going to share in a very informal way. At the beginning, consider it's like an internal parenthèse and joke, still based on not academic, but on-the-ground interviews we had through a lot of countries. And we were a diverse group of people. We were people from sales, management, marketing, designers, and other people. So the background was diverse, and then we were emerging in countries just to understand, like you said, identity. And we just came when you talked about Sarkozy and identity and mono-identity, like no. So
What do we share?
actually, the identity we just realized is coming from the, at the point of view of the semiology of the word, is coming from identical. I didn't know. So then we just find out, okay, if identity is coming from identical, it's based on our identity will be what we share, when I feel identical to you or you or you, temporary or permanent. So I could have then several identity. I could totally be somebody from 8 to 9 and after switch my identity temporary from 10 to 11 and then grab another one for the rest of the day. So I totally embrace this diversity of identity. This said, what do we have in common? And of course, the management of the company told us it could be nice to have like a key or like a game of cards that enable us to define the contour, the frame around it. So where do you think we are here? Bingo.
Yeah.
Netherlands.
Yes.
So, and then we were thinking, okay, as a modus operandi, I just incline you, I'm not going to repeat it. The game is like, as long as Dutch are happy. So shortcut, what is the kind of template, grid, or recurrent, or echo that makes, like, by iteration, they became very good at something, and then it makes them collectively happy. Of course it's cliche, of course it's superficial, but it was undeniably there. It was something they are sharing. So what we find out is like Netherlands. It's a very small country. They are flat. Their resources, natural resources, are very low. So the resource, it's people. So their resource is there. So shortcut, we realize, I work with innovative material at the level of a country and EU. And it happens like Netherlands is the country in the world that use the most of innovative material per habitant. And I was wondering why. And actually, this innovation is actually what they have in common. That's also what constitutes the country, because they protect the country, you know, with flood and so on. So they are on the edge since many years. So actually, as long as it's innovative, inventive, the Dutch are happy. And then we test out this idea, and actually we find out it was finding echo in nearly everybody. So we took that assumption as, okay, correct.
And then the Danish?
Yeah, and then we met actually when we were in Amsterdam, talking with a lot of people actually. We find out that it was a vintage chair. Remember, we focused on the co-working spaces. It was a lot of vintage chair that was with a Rietveld pyramid. The chair is called, I don't know if you know it, it's like a skull. You have also this trend in France, actually. We visited a lot of people in France to have the trend of buying like school furniture at home. This kind of vintage look, it's a bit all over. But this chair was all over. And then we find out like if the Dutch, they had, I'm talking about that one, if the Dutch had the invention or the capacity to invent it, who do you think had the capacity to scale it up? No.
Denmark.
Yes.
Yes.
because then we went. Now we're in Denmark, and then we talked with all our Danish friends at any level, and we were thinking, okay, guys, what do you have in common? What you became very good at something, and we talk this kind of collective proud, and actually it's trading, and it's not for nothing. I believe also in semiology, not semiology, semiology. Schopenhauer is the trading harbor, actually. So when we talked at any level, that could be creatives, or that could be people in charge, like there, or of a background, they had in common this capacity of trading. Hey, I don't know if you know it. It's kind of a new franchise, but that's one of the strongest and more solid. They make 120 million per year, and actually they had the capacity to, in benefits, yeah. They had the ambition and the muscles to actually scale it up. So it's not a, this is just an example, like a cliché example. But when we confront our network with this kind of assumption, it's not even an hypothesis, they react very well. They're extremely proud of it. Yes, that's us. Which country? It's strange because I asked you a new generation, I was shocked. They were like 16 and they didn't know. Where, in which country? Germany? Yeah. Italy! Yeah! Oh. So, what do you think? Now we understand this range of commercial, they were quite known, but it's also this, it's rooted into the proud of Germany. We talked with intensive amount of people here. I give you 3 seconds, as long as German are happy. Any idea? Yeah! As long as it works. As long as it works, German are happy. And you're gonna, like I say, every time we based anything, could be any kind of level of discussion, that's to work. And then they were extremely proud. That's the collect, and they became good at it. So here, of course, you have Volkswagen. Not working, impossible. You might think it's a cliché, of course, but if you start to take this one and put it on a layer of Danish or then others, you will realize it doesn't fit.
Yeah, and
sorry?
Hmm?
It has an air-cooled engine.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it absolutely.
Yeah, of course it's in the back. I have a Beetle.
And perhaps sometimes maybe they would need another nationality to go with this functionalist point of view, and that's the Italians. When we talk to architects and designers over there, we realized that beauty was something more for Italians. It was not just aesthetics, elegance, it was a religion. And one designer even said that. Beauty is religion. And a dealer of office chairs presented this one to us. He said, your ergonomic, well-functioning, comfortable chairs, they don't sell so well. What sells is this cartel chair. It's very uncomfortable, but it's beautiful. So people buy it. And the French, we share, I say we, I've been living 14 years in France, so I have a little bit of French culture with me. And it's not for nothing that every Asterix story is finished with a big meal, because that's how we build relationships in France. So to have 2 hours lunch with the client, that's totally normal. And what we resume it with is, if you can eat it, French are happy. So where are we now? England. There was a hard nut to crack, actually, because what is England? Is it music? Is it the humor? Is it eccentricity? Actually, it's all of those, but with manners. So Brits, they are happy if you're polite. So as long as it's polite, the Brits are happy.
Country? Sweden. That was frankly easy, even though, again, it was not our own interpretation. This is based on multi-dialogue facet with multi-people. And that was just something that came up at the surface, and we had a game with not only the people we interviewed, but also external people. And we say, seriously, you have a recurrency here. We see the same pattern several times. Will it be possible? Or say, good chance. So in Sweden, of course, we realize there are a little bit of both, a little bit of this, a little bit no take choice and so on. And this kind of, is it legendary, but capacity to deny conflict at any level. So actually, we just realize, and it's not only diplomatic, it's like, so as long as everybody agrees, Swedes are happy. And then, where do you think are we? Yeah, but you see, it's so evident for you, but that's the power of that thing. At the beginning, the Asterix, you wanted to take a wall, and I'm not kidding, you can do the trick. We went on our friends who are living in Paris. Really, many levels. One is working in a hospital, the other is working in a restaurant, cliché, the other is working in like, I think marketing-ish. All their wall, the way they were relating, they were socializing, they were taking selfies and so on. And the place, it was full of food. Food, restaurants, cake, it was literally anchored there. And then we looked at 4 of our Norwegian friends, and it was that.
This is a designer, by the way.
And his designer is Magnete, same, he was designer at Shape, and now he's working at Stokke. So, you remember the model of Kil Abdul Aziz, this stone in steel for Snøhetta with the stripes on it. He did it. They are working from Ålesund at that moment. Anyway, we tried to find out the Norwegian. Fordi jeg føler halvt norsk nu, so my Norway, my little land. What do we have in common? What do we have in common that we like to cultivate and that define partially, maybe, who we are? And then, of course, we looked at the way our life is going. We live in Dala, it's 1,000 people. And then you have this permanent expression like gå på tur, aldri sur. So shortcut, there is no bad weather in Norway, just bad clothes. That's the thing. And actually, it's not at all French. I think if it's bad weather in France, actually, we will more have a reflex like, let's go to it. Or cook or something. In Norway, it's like, let's go out. If you want to meet Norwegian, if you want to socialize, if you want to make friends, you go outside. Actually, somebody told me in Dala, where I live, we invite them and say, you never invite back, why? I say, you are French, we can't do that, we can't compete. With the food, I mean. So they don't invite me because they think they're going to feel uncomfortable giving their food to a French guy. But then, we meet in the mountain. So, shortcut with the Norwegian, as long as it's outside, Norwegians are happy. And actually, if you make a small metaphor, even with the opera, you say, what's the signature also that people are outside, they are literally on the opera. So,
yeah, that's what we found, so, and we would be really happy to talk to you and afterwards and exchange ideas.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Birgitta and Alexandre. The next post on the program is now, we will go to the workshop part, but the first workshop will be here in the plenary session, so it will be for everyone. And then after the next 2 workshops, one will be here and one will be just in the room next to us, but I will give you more information about that later. So the next on here is list is Architectural and Culture Project, for whom? And it will be moderated by 2 persons. One is Rémi Desalbres. He's a French heritage architect, president of the Association des Architectes du Patrimoine. Welcome. Who's also the Association of Heritage Architects. And the other moderator is Tonje Frydenlund. She's managing director at Snøhetta. So I give the floor to you, and then you take the control of the rest of the afternoon.
Good. This is our topic for the workshop, architectural introduction where Remy and myself, we will give an introduction to this topic with a PowerPoint. Then we will have invited guests up here. We will have Marianne Schulhaug giving one introduction to the Oslo cultural project, and then we will have a conversation. And I heard from the people over there that my PowerPoint was first for me, so I will start with this. Good. I think actually you're going over there for the first. Is this on? Yeah. And it was really good to have your presentation now, as long as it's outside, it's okay. And we always start our presentations with the Snøhetta mountain, which also our name is coming from. And it was just a few weeks ago, it was celebrating the happy day, and then it was released that Norwegians are the happiest people on the planet. So we can be a lot outside. Once a year, we actually go for a trip to Snøhetta with the whole company. So last time we did that, it was 90 people climbing the mountain. And it's really important, as you pinpointed, for us to build collaboration and doing things together, also then outdoors. We are represented with offices all around the world. We have our main office here in Oslo, but we also have an office in New York, in San Francisco, in Innsbruck, Stockholm, Adelaide, and Singapore. And we are on to opening a studio also in Paris, since we do have a lot of projects there for the time being. On this topic, how do we think about how architectural and cultural projects can intervene? This is a really important mantra for us. You have to be generous, both with cultural projects, but most importantly for architecture when it comes to cultural projects. It has to be generous. And it has to be places where people feel that they're welcome and that they are invited in. And you should also be generous on the cultural program for these venues, because it's open for the public, and you should be able to invite a lot of different people in. You should have sustainability, also when it comes to social sustainability, in mind, in your forehead. One of our most important projects from the later years are obviously the opera here in Oslo. And for us, it was a really important example of doing a good architectural and landscape project as a concept, that you bring in landscape into how you deal also with the building. And for this seating close to the Oslo fjord, and also that this was an area that before the opera was there, used to be a traffic machine. Nobody walked there. It was full of traffic. That was everything that was there, both for transport of large-scale containers from shipping, but also the most dense traffic on the major road, which then was put in a tunnel, and you had a released area. So the opera was important to make as a possibility of using the site twice, of bringing a big plaza on top of a building. And the size of the opera roof is at the same size as the City Hall plaza outside here in Oslo. And it's important that people can actually use that building. They're invited in. The opera is, in Norway, a cultural form which not that many had a specific familiarity to. You wouldn't go that much in the opera, perhaps once a year to see the Nutcracker for Christmas, but then it was a secret. So having the concept of bringing people back to the opera, bringing it as a venue where you could actually also have free concerts on the roof, and to introduce different cultural relationships to such a building, it has been a major part of the success. So now people bring their visitors, or they send a stroll out here on the opera. And you can also use it as a playground. So the children are the one that actually discover these small hidden areas within also an architecture piece where they can play, they can do different things. And that's also a great part of how you can use a building.
Oh, wow.
Or you can ski. So you can do all sorts, and you should have robust buildings also for public buildings and cultural venues where you can invite in. And I think also the opera itself has been quite inspired by this. So now, after opening here, it's been the first time where you had a breakdance company and a classical ballet company doing one collaborative work on a show, and they really feel that they can use this building and innovate also when it comes to the cultural shows. But it's also good to challenge when you are invited to do projects and architectural work, that you can think in a different manner when it comes also for the programming of a building. This is a play tower that we did for Swarovski in Austria. We could do a project for them in their larger Kristallwelten, which is a larger park where they show their crystal production. But we wanted to do a playground, and we did the play tower. So it's only 4 floors with just play. So you can invite in children here to spend the time and just have 4 different floors where they can explore, climb and play in the building. And that's all that is there. And we can even use it for our play. So. But let me just introduce you also shortly to our latest building in France. This is the Visitor Center for Lascaux, the caves in Dordogne. And we won the competition there 8 years ago, and it's now just open. And it's for the 20,000-year-old cave paintings. And what we did is to make a 3D copy. So this is modern art, actually. 3D scanning the old caves, producing that into a concrete and a really complex set of buildings, and having 20 artists painting up again these old cave paintings. So this is a new way of presenting these caves, working also with scenographic elements. This is pictures from the finished building, giving modern digital information on these really ancient artifacts, and telling the story again, making the building work also in the way of experiencing these really old artifacts, and playing on that interface between landscape and architecture in how you experience this really unique history when it comes to art. And it gives a whole different setting, a whole different way of explaining what this is all about. And it is now, it takes 3,500 visitors a day, and it's sold out for a whole year. It just opened. So this is quite important also, how you can invite even more people into looking at this important cultural part, and how you can collaborate between culture and architecture into bringing new experiences. And we will get a little bit back to that topic when we have the conversation here later on. And I will give the word now over to Remy for his introduction to the topic. Thank you.
Which microphone do you have?
Oui, est-ce qu'il marche? Ah, mic free. Oui. The rehabilitation of heritage. What can it provide to culture? Alors, je vais m'exprimer également en français. Et puis parfois ce sera traduit ou à l'occasion il y a également quelques traductions sur les slides. Alors, la ville ancienne contient une part de l'histoire, de l'histoire sociale, économique, politique, mais également culturelle, artistique de la société. Que peut-elle encore apporter à notre société moderne? Quel sens peut-on donner à la réhabilitation urbaine et à la transformation, à la réutilisation du patrimoine bâti? Enfin, comment concilier patrimoine et modernité? Alors, pour illustrer ces différentes questions, j'ai choisi un exemple de réhabilitation dans une ville de 30 000 habitants, hein, dans un territoire français relativement rural. En Nouvelle-Aquitaine, c'est la ville de Thouars. Alors, à l'arrière de ce... Sorry.
Okay, to illustrate all the different points, Rémi will present a study case coming from Aquitaine region, city named Thouars.
Il s'agit d'un hôtel particulier du XVe siècle situé en bordure de la ville médiévale. La ville est à l'arrière, ici, du monument.
So it's an old hotel particulier from the 15th century at the edge of the old city.
Un grand site historique qui a été ensuite transformé en collège, puis en lycée, avec un internat au XIXe siècle et différents ajouts de bâtiments.
So it's a remarkable heritage site which has been transformed in the 19th century in an internat and in a school.
Après le départ de l'école, s'est posé la question de la réutilisation du bâtiment. Pour quel usage un site historique situé ici en bordure de la ville médiévale de Thouars.
So after the school left the premises, they had the question how to reuse this historical site, which is situated on the edge of the historical medieval city of Thouars.
Un site qui s'est rapidement dégradé, avec néanmoins sur la communauté de communes des besoins de reloger un conservatoire de musique et de danse.
So it was a building which fell down very rapidly concerning the stage of conservation, but at the same time they identified new needs locally, like a conservatory of music and,
dance.
And dance.
Hein? Un conservatoire devenu trop petit et situé en périphérie. Too small.
Periphery of the city.
Alors, là c'est un choix politique qui a guidé le choix de réutiliser ce site, notamment avec les conseils du ministère de la Culture français.
So it has been a political choice to reuse the existing building and with the help of advice from the Ministry of Culture.
Alors les raisons de la réhabilitation sont multiples, à la fois une dimension culturelle forte d'un site historique, un site qui témoigne à la fois de l'histoire des hommes, qui nous ramène bien évidemment à l'art et puis à différents savoir-faire.
So this is a list of the different reasons which were the driving force to the rehabilitation and the adaptation of this building.
Une dimension sociale, avec un attachement très fort de la population, sachant que donc, ce site avait accueilli une école, des milliers d'élèves étaient passés là, et on s'aperçoit qu'il y a eu une appropriation après de fait, et une totale réintégration du site dans la vie collective.
For example, from the social point of view, the fact that it was before school has created, of course, a lot of links within the population, which was very attached to this building.
Une dimension environnementale, enfin, puisqu'il s'agissait à la fois de limiter l'étalement urbain, de réduire l'impact carbone, mais aussi de mutualiser les infrastructures, notamment pour libérer des espaces.
An environmental dimension with the idea of reduce carbon footprint, to have energy efficient for the building, and the last one, sorry, I forgot.
Pour libérer des... Oui,
and to reduce also, of course, the urban sprawl of the city, so to optimize the use of space.
Alors pourquoi je reviens à cette illustration, c'est parce que là, grâce également au maintien d'une activité essentielle dans la vie collective, une activité donc réintégrée dans la ville historique, vous voyez que les abords ont pu être maintenus en l'état et reste un paysage, un grand paysage.
So due to the fact that they managed to keep this function within the city of reuse of building, they also kept the surrounding environment, which are quite preserved, and with this idea of great landscape, grand paysage.
Donc vous voyez ici le bâtiment transformé qui accueille à la fois la partie danse ici, la partie musique dans la partie plus ancienne.
So the dance part of the building is on our right, and the music department is more on the left for us.
La question, bien évidemment, est de savoir comment réutiliser, pour qui, pourquoi réutiliser un bâtiment historique, et notamment la question essentielle de l'adéquation entre un programme et les potentialités du site.
So the main question is how to reuse an existing building and to readapt it to the new programmation and the new needs, specifically connected with the site.
Alors sur un site historique, là qui est très fort, qui va à la fois du XVe siècle au début du XXe siècle, voire maintenant au XXIe siècle, là, il y a la nécessité de réaliser une étude de faisabilité, là où le travail entre l'architecte et le programmiste est tout à fait essentiel.
So for such kind of historical site, it's very important to do a kind of feasibility study between the architect and the programmist, the one who will define the program of the new building.
Il va s'agir à la fois donc de vérifier l'adéquation entre un programme culturel, avec l'existant.
So it's about to define how it is fitting between a cultural program and the existing structure of the building.
Mais également de tirer le meilleur parti de l'existant, tout l'enjeu étant là.
And of course, try to get the most benefit of the existing parts of the building.
Un bâtiment est en effet souvent le résultat de modifications successives et la plupart de ces modifications relèvent bien souvent de bricolage sans projet d'ensemble.
Yeah, as it is written down, the building, of course, it's a kind of resume of different transformation all over the time, and some of them are a little bit, of course, bricolage. Yes.
Ces modifications successives, si vous voulez, bien souvent ont contribué à détourner le regard des visiteurs, tout simplement même de la population d'un monument et d'un site qui, en lui, porte pourtant une histoire tout à fait importante et à laquelle les habitants peuvent être attachés.
Yeah, as you has been writing in the last part, all this transformation during the time has maybe transformed the idea of the interest for the inhabitants of the site because of all the small different modifications which has been done.
Alors les enjeux architecturaux de la réhabilitation, c'est-à-dire du travail même de l'architecte, après ce travail préalable réalisé avec un programmiste, à savoir donc l'adéquation du programme et le site, ça va être de trouver une juste affectation des espaces.
So the goal of the architect in charge of the transformation of the building will be to define the right adjustment on the use of the space connected to the program.
Une démarche à la fois qui porte sur une analyse précise, une analyse poussée du site, à la fois analyse paysagère, architecturale, la question d'identifier les qualités, les potentialités d'un site, mais également avoir une connaissance approfondie de l'histoire de la construction.
So it's about to have a good analysis, preliminary analysis of the site with the different qualities, and also to have a good understanding of the last point was, sorry, le dernier point que vous avez cité.
La connaissance, à la fois la connaissance de l'histoire, également des techniques anciennes de construction.
Of course, and a good knowledge of the history and the traditional way of buildings.
Voilà, de façon à pouvoir révéler les qualités souvent oubliées du bâti ancien et d'un site comme celui-ci.
In a way to reveal and to make more clear the lost qualities of old building.
Alors, l'enjeu d'une réhabilitation, ça va être redonner du sens aux choses. Il faut voir que tout a un sens. L'évolution, nous travaillons d'abord sur la base d'archives, sur une analyse du bâtiment, et à travers un projet, l'idée est de pouvoir redonner du sens, et ce qui va permettre aux habitants de se réapproprier le bâtiment et le site.
It's all about to give back a kind of sense for the building in a way that the inhabitants can reappropriate this space.
Alors il ne s'agit en aucun cas de restituer nécessairement les états anciens, puisqu'on vient au contraire prolonger le patrimoine, c'est-à-dire lui redonner vie. Mais ce bâtiment qui n'avait plus été occupé depuis une trentaine d'années, aujourd'hui accueille à la fois les plus de 800 élèves, mais aussi toute une part des activités culturelles du territoire.
So it's not about to recreate a kind of fake image of the past, but it's more to reuse existing and the qualities, and now they manage to have more than 800 pupils, students using this building.
Alors, vous voudrez m'excuser, mais nous parlons de société, d'habitants, d'élèves. Malheureusement, ces images sont des images d'architecture et sont souvent, ne présentent pas la vie à l'intérieur du bâtiment. Mais l'appropriation aujourd'hui est totale avec... Enfin, on va devoir finir. Là, tout simplement pour vous montrer qu'au cours d'un chantier, si vous voulez, on fait énormément de découvertes. Et à la fois, c'est un bâtiment qui raconte, hein, c'est ce que je vous disais tout à l'heure, qui raconte l'histoire des hommes, l'histoire de Thouars, mais également du grand territoire. Et là, vous voyez des cheminées qui ont été découvertes en cours de chantier, qui ont été restaurées et qui viennent apporter au bâtiment, mais également au nouvel usage, un intérêt tout particulier.
So this is only picture of what they have been discovering during the building site, old chimneys and so on, and of course they kept it.
Un monument historique peut être aussi une intervention sur un site ancien, peut être aussi l'occasion de créer, prolonger ce patrimoine, notamment ici un travail avec un designer et qui reprend les motifs, tout au moins qui s'inspirent des motifs des cheminées médiévales.
So this is a designer work to try to prolong the idea of heritage using the old pattern from the chimney in the stairs.
Alors, pour conclure, voilà, on pourrait considérer que l'art, oui, et on peut utiliser, me semble-t-il, le terme d'utile. Il est utile à la société, non pas avec une dimension économique directe, mais tout au moins il est utile parce qu'il renvoie à une histoire, parce qu'il enrichit tout simplement la société à laquelle nous faisons partie. Voilà, je vous remercie de votre attention.
To conclude, so we could say that art is of course useful for the society, not only from the economical point of view, but because it's enriching the society we are living in.
Merci.
Thank you.
The next speaker out will be Marianne Skjulhaug. She is from the architectural school here in Oslo, and for the last two and a half years, she has, together with the students, been working on a project that has been mapping all of the major cultural developments here in Oslo, and it has been a collaborative work together with the architectural firm Lan from Paris, and also with great support from Institut français. So Marianne, you will give us a good introduction to this mapping of Oslo.
Thank you. Should I? Which one? This one, maybe? Okay. I will. Thank you for the introduction, and you kind of pointed out the major cultural projects, but actually the idea was the complete opposite. To try to map out everything that was going on, but I will come back to that. I will just give you some background. This is Oslo, and let's see if this works. Yeah, and here you can see Oslo is actually a lot of water and a lot of forest, and I think that's connected to the idea of being outdoors. So I just to let the French audience know, but a Norwegian city can be defined that more than 250 people and less than 50 meters between the houses. I think it's important. I was recently in Colombia to talk about Norwegian urbanism, and it's really extra small. So that's just background. But what you see in this map is that the city is kind of centrally located facing the Oslo fjord, and the colors indicate that the red areas here and out in Bygdøy are the major cultural locations in Oslo. So from this map, there is a heavy centrality in where cultural institutions are located. Well, and another backdrop is the fjord city, which has transformed Oslo radically, I would say. The idea is more than, I think, 40 years back. But in 1987, 30 years back, one of the first kind of drawings that showed the vision of a new transformed harborfront of the city was envisioned. In this plan, culture were not that prominent. So it was actually, we had the opera house as built before, I mean, the plans were directly developed. But it was actually in 2008 the major decision about relocating the major cultural institutions into the fjord city was made. And I think that's actually quite amazing. And we can discuss a lot of reasons behind and all that, but I think that the ambition that came in 2000, that Oslo wanted to be this star on the heaven of European cities, at least, maybe world cities as well, kind of fueled the idea of culture as an important factor. And I think we also, fortunately or unfortunately, can thank the American Richard Florida that launched the idea of the creative class as a major competition fortrinn. Advantage. Okay, so this is the fjord city, and as you probably know, now in the plans we will have the National Museum located here. We have the Astrup Fearnley Museum, private museum, down here. We have the Opera House, we have the library, we have the Munch Museum. Yeah, and we also have the harbor promenade that also has more temporary culture interventions within it. And now I glemt one. Yeah, and the opera is coming back, and now it's not the architect bragging, but now it's me. And I think this extremely iconic, strong building has been super important, and I think you explained it really well. How this cultural kind of palace is in the central part of Oslo, but it has kind of opened for people with this magnificent new urban. No, sorry. Wow. Rooftop. And I think that really hits the Norwegian soul in a way, because this idea is, if you had debated discussed this with Jan Gehl, he would argue that, well, nothing is going on, no one will enter that roof. It's completely without anything, not any commercial aspect or any other kind of attractions than the roof itself, the sky and the fjord and the city. So I find that extremely beautiful and successful. But then you could say the Opera House is the mother of all. That was mentioned earlier today as a new wave, like from 2000, where we have got, I would say, almost hundreds of new cultural projects throughout the whole country, more or less successful architecturally. Some of them are extremely beautiful, like this library in Nesla. This is a cultural house in Svalbard. But we have, all in all, I think we have 250 cultural houses, and we are 400-something municipalities. So every second municipality has a cultural house of some kind of significance. And just a fun fact, but 1,000 years ago we had approximately 1,000 state churches, and now we only have 28 back. So it will be interesting to follow, to see how this trend will evolve and how we manage to maintain this and how this can nourish culture. And for me, this is a very personal experience. 10 years ago, I was invited to give a lecture at the National Library, and then I was a Bergenser. I used to live in Bergen, the second largest city in Norway, and I came almost like a foreigner to Oslo to talk about libraries and cities. And while I was standing there, I was thinking, wow, now there will be this competition for a new library down in Bjørvika, and what about this extremely beautiful space? What will happen? And to be honest, I didn't dare to raise the question because I thought maybe I didn't know, or I was like badly informed, or I didn't have the knowledge, so I wouldn't show that, so I kept quiet. But the fact was no one knew, and we don't know now, 10 years after, and this is coming up now. The construction site is about. So the library is about to be realized, and that has started an interesting debate, and I think that was also a part of the background for the cultural projects Cartographie culturelle that we started in collaboration with Agnès and the French Institut. And Dominique, now you have the chance to direct translation into French.
It's not very clear absolutely now what will be the reuse of the Museum of Contemporary Art. Peut-être en français ce sera plus simple.
Ouais.
Donc il n'y a pas en effet d'idée très claire actuellement comment ils vont réutiliser le musée d'art contemporain. Il est présupposé oui, que l'État a une énorme masse de construction, enfin une masse construite sur laquelle il n'y a pas encore de plan précis, selon l'architecte historique Evan Smith Helleland. Et aussi ça
Oui.
Il y a beaucoup d'espoir, de souhaits et d'espoir qui ont émergé pour la réutilisation de la Galerie nationale et du musée d'art contemporain. Mais ils ne sont pas suivis ou rarement suivis de fonds financiers, d'argent.
That's the most important.
On ne peut pas manager un bâtiment, on ne peut pas exploiter un bâtiment uniquement par l'air et l'amour. Merci pour... Un ancien bâtiment doit être exploité et tenu en état, et on doit trouver des clients qui ont de l'argent pour le maintenir en état, selon le directeur de la communication de Stadsbygg, qui est l'équivalent de l'ancien France Domaine.
Mais c'est pas tout à fait vrai, hein?
Ah oui,
ouais.
Tu vas me corriger.
Si vous permettez, first of all, it's already a reuse of an existing building. It was the Bank of Norway.
Yes.
Before it became a museum. Secondly, one of the options for reuse of it now is to let us, the antiquarian of the kingdom, move into this house.
And they even had as a 1st of April joke that this was supposed to be transformed into a hammam, which people thought was a splendid idea. But that's another story. But the thing is that at the moment we have a layer of representative, huge cultural buildings that we don't really know how to reuse. So that's one layer. Then, if you remember this centrality of cultural institutions, the idea with the workshop or the project Cartographie culturelle was to actually try to question, is it really like that? So we 60 students of architecture, they were sent out in the city and tried to map and find all cultural institutions, as many as they could. So it's not so easy to read, but all the red-colored buildings are somehow cultural institutions. This is the football field. And why I'm mentioning that is that that was a really interesting part of the French-Norwegian discussion. And the students were like, well, we need to define a cultural institution, and it includes religion, it includes sports, and it can't be very strict. And the French architects, Lang and Umberto Napolitano, he was like furious. You can't include sports. We have to be extremely strict. So already it was an interesting cultural exchange. We continued to elaborate on this map, so we had also a studio looking further into the layer of cultural institutions together with empty spaces. So some of the blue dots here are empty spaces of all different kinds that you can find throughout the city. And to see how there could be some kind of connection or possibilities of kind of remaking a new cultural map of Oslo.
I have a question, sorry.
Yeah.
I don't know if you know, guys, where you have the title, Cartographie culturelle, there is an island, actually, we showed Nasjonalbiblioteket.
Yeah.
Is it included in Oslo as a
No.
territory? Or
No.
So that's why it's not on the map? Okay.
This was the city of Oslo strictly. So that's why it's empty out here. It's not empty, of course.
Must be.
But I think out of this came a lot of a new awareness of the city. Like in the southern parts, you almost have nothing. Not empty spaces and at least non-cultural institutions. So it's something about the balance in the city. The last step of this project, and now I will finish, I will just show you, we made an exhibition as a part of the Oslo Architectural Triennale, where we invited two photographers to travel to the French one to Oslo, to meet a Norwegian architect, Joachim Skøyer. Julian Lano was the photographer's name, and then a Norwegian photographer going to Paris to join Umberto Napolitano to kind of create a news story on cultural institutions and the role in the urban fabric. And now I will just show you the Oslo photos that we exhibited. I will not comment, but I think they invite us to look at cultural institutions in a new light and maybe bring in what I think Olaf Thommessen talked about, this more the bottom-up perspective, and see how a cultural institution maybe can be treated with not disrespect, but a bit lighter. So Julian Lano is, and now I will just go through them. Tøyen, yes. And this is where the library is that was mentioned earlier today for youth. Yeah. So this is the Munch Museum that will be abandoned in 2 years, which is also located at Tøyen.
Okay, we take over.
This is House Mania. That's a cultural house in the city center that's run by, I don't know how you would call it, but autonomous groups or really alternative groups. This is Deichman, the library, that will be abandoned. That will be abandoned.
The driver is thinking.
Yeah.
I wonder.
And then this is the site for the new National Gallery, which is behind the station. This is the Astrup Fearnley Museum. And then I finished with the roof of the opera. Tack.
That will come up, Dominique Cellier and Frédéric Massely. Have a seat. We will get some more mix. The topic of this session, as you know, has been how we do architecture and culture projects and for whom, and also how collaborative work and effort can improve the access to culture. And one of the topics that we have been talking about here is also what are the challenges of articulating architectural and culture projects as a political vision. And Frédéric, you have some thoughts on this topic.
Yeah. Hello? It's good, it's good. Yes, as I said this morning, the Parc de la Villette is a 19th century area. It was actually a former slaughterhouse since 1974. And then the government decided to create a really big, large cultural site between science and art. So they asked to an international competition where Bernard Tschumi, the Swiss architect, won the competition, and he built this park, which is a 55 hectares with different, of course, he kept some buildings, mainly this big Grand Halle, which is one of the hall of the slaughterhouse, but also a few buildings in the park. But the only buildings, the park itself, with the grass, with the area, is totally new, and they built that in the 1980s, about. And they started with the science of museum, and then they built the National Conservatoire, and then the City of Museum with two auditorium, and another one after. And then a few buildings for different activities. The point of this park is that it's the only park in Paris which is totally open. There's no barriers, nothing. It's open night and day. So, and the other thing is it's very close to the suburbs. It's very in Paris, but very close to the suburbs. So, so the people, they can come in very easily to the different activities we propose, as like just to walk in the park or to do whatever you want, but also to see a show, to see an exhibition, to go to a concert, etc. And also a lot of activities for children as well. So we are based in the northeast of Paris, which is a very popular district, and so from the beginning of the story of this park, of the new park, we start to engage a lot of exchange between the different communities, different people. And so, as I said this morning, we, of course, work with the different local actors, but also with the artists we invite in the residency program or just for presenting a show. So this dynamics, it's very real when you compare to the other places in Paris. You can find a public when you can see that public, for instance, in another place in Paris. And if you just look at the public in the park, yes, you say, yeah, we are something different. We are really a very mixity of different audiences.
Do you experience that what Parc de la Villette has contributed with being an open public park, also very multicultural, has that also been something that other parks or other cultural venues in Paris are now experimenting with? I
think that they think at the beginning to build an open space, to invite the people to come. And the result 30 years ago, it's a success. We are doing now, for instance, a focus on Africa. We have an exhibition and different performances everywhere in the park. And if you see the audience in this exhibition, which is very demanding, with a young artist and more known artist. And on the other side, if it's you see it's unique in Paris. It's really unique. You don't see that audience in another place.
Marianne, when we hear about this story of Parc de la Villette, do you feel that any of the cultural areas or the mapping you did in Oslo has any of the great success in Parc de la Villette, or does it have potential of being something like that?
That's actually a quite hard question, because it's not so easy to answer.
If maybe Cathrine, just because I saw your pictures, La Villette is in a way it's like we don't have any opera so far, but if you look at the pictures on the city of Oslo, La Villette is like if you put the opera and the library and the national things in the same places. That's the idea.
And what happens when you bring different cultural areas within an area where you can use then and activate that whole area? That's something that also Oslo then are in the spirit of doing right now.
The only thing is that the fjord city or the fjordbyen is a very exclusive residential area. So you have this that can kind of create some segregation or excluding people, which I don't think Parc de la Villette has that in the same way. So the connotations are different. Yeah.
Dominic?
Oh, yeah, of course, the main difference we could try to find if we want to stress the French approach of it has been the idea of involvement and building up all the project within the local community. And unfortunately, with Opera of Oslo and with the other big new institution, Munch Museum, and it has been, of course, a public official consultation, but we cannot say it will be a successful project concerning involvement of the local community. Yes, the local community is maybe few because it's not so much people living around. But anyway, this is something we should have stressed, or maybe in the future for to fulfill this cultural acts in Oslo.
And the potential of that might be Tøyen.
Yes.
That will be transformed
Yes.
now, moving some of the cultural venues out, bringing more integration to the actual people living there. What do you?
But even being more radical, like if you go to MoMA in New York, you can see really moving out of the central parts of the city. And so I think that is the next generation that we can really use culture as this drive force in communities.
Oui, alors Marianne, vous nous avez parlé de différents bâtiments qui aujourd'hui se vident ou vont perdre leur usage, notamment la librairie, le musée. Par rapport à ça, quelle a été votre approche? Avez-vous travaillé avec des programmistes, une analyse pluridisciplinaire avec des sociologues, programmistes, architectes, urbanistes? Ou voilà, c'est ma question. Aujourd'hui, qui traite de ces sujets de réutilisation avant même, bien évidemment, d'intervenir et de lancer un chantier de réhabilitation au niveau du programme culturel.
Just the last question.
Who is? Okay, maybe just briefly, the last question was, who is working when it comes to the readaptation of existing building? Who will make a big part of it? If it's an architect, if it's with a programmist, for example, and with regarding your own experience as an architect,
urbanist,
and urban planner,
sociologue.
We probably can answer together because I think. Not sociologues, no. I don't think. I think in Norway, urban spatial planning is and also within the municipality, like planning is quite old-fashioned and conventional in many ways. But I think that Dominique's kind of NICU and the Riksantikvaren, of course, the cultural heritage authorities will play an important role in these questions. And that's why I was talking about maybe not disrespect, but a bit more light-footed. And so I think that the cultural heritage will become, the values will become more important than keeping the culture as a program, but in a 21st century manner. And if I can, I'm almost French, I speak so much, but if you go to La Villette and even St. Cathrine, it's interesting to see how diverse and vital, so to say, it is. I hope for that in Oslo as well, but I'm afraid maybe not.
Yeah, maybe from the heritage perspective, I'm working, in a Norwegian Research Institute for Heritage question. I'm more responsible for urban issues, and we are working also closely with Cultural Heritage Directorate, Riksantikvar. And one of the key words which is used now, it's the idea of readaptive use, so meaning using the existing qualities, as as you describe also in your project, to refine new uses and new life for the existing building. If I can be a little bit critical, maybe, because of the history of Norway concerning urban life, which is quite new if you compare to other European countries. You don't have this tradition of heavy, long urban policy as other countries, and it could come that some heritage authorities are a little bit conservative here, especially in Byantikra, and when it comes to the transformation of the inner city of the city, which name is Quadrature, between all these new cultural institutions. And one of the main issues will be, of course, to try to drag more people living there and to have a kind of more livable area and to make it more attractive, not only for tourists, because it has been also a point stressed by the vice-mayor this morning, that all this cultural project, she expressed it very clearly, it's a good marketing tool for the city. Yes, that's it, that's right. But she said that after it has also multi-purpose use for the inhabitants. But this is a little bit the weak point, maybe, of all these projects, how to involve really the existing society or existing community in all these new developments. Because I'm not sure that the Oslo citizens will go every weekend to these wonderful new buildings. Yeah.
And Fredrik, do you have any then experience from how Paris has succeeded in then refilling older buildings and filling them with new venues and new potential life that we can learn from here in Oslo when we now do have several old empty buildings?
In general, in Paris in general. Yes, I'm not a specialist, but yes, if I go to along the river, there is some buildings now, the new buildings, the museum of this district is in the 12th district. There is this area where there are the design museum, where something happened very, very interesting. And but one point is when we speak about rehabilitation and renovation of the buildings and all the area, it's also to create something in link between what happened in the creation in the movement now, not only in reference to the past. It could be historical, of course, it is important, but also the people they do that as a minister or whatever. It could be private as well, but I think they should have in mind that they have to be connected with what happened now in terms of creation, in terms of innovation, whatever. To be open to the what's going with, especially with the young people, for instance. Yeah, and I see a lot of spaces in Paris doing that. Yes, not only us, but yeah.
And that's also how you can then invent new life into old buildings when you actually bring in the younger generation and filling it with a totally different program and venues and happenings than what used to be there.
Yeah, exactly.
And get that as something this brings on. There are also a need for then collaborative processes in the way of bringing in new cultural programming in older venues, and also how can we be able to improve that collaboration platform in inventing a new sustainable process in raising these issues? Dominic?
Which is a quite big issues, of course. I had maybe a few slides to show, to illustrate, if we could try to find some answers, but some points has been already mentioned, but very rapidly, and maybe to make also the differences about the approaches between France and Norway when it comes to heritage and urban planning. We have, if I'm taking now the French hat. As Rémi explained, we have a lot tradition of planning tools devoted to the preservation of heritage, and especially coming from 62 already, when it comes to the urban related environment with La Loi Malraux, which has created this idea of preservation plan in a city, and this plan is done instead of a normal urban plan or communal plan here in Norway. So there's a kind of a long tradition to consider the urban issues also related to heritage, and of course when we compare it here with Norway, which is maybe not so advanced in this specific topic, but it doesn't mean that there's no project. Riksantikvar has just published 1 week ago his strategy concerning city, which will be define the main topics, but at the same time it's not accompanied by financial means and specific concrete tools. And this is maybe something which is more anchored in the urban planning policy in France, that we have a lot of networks of professionals helping the local communities to get some good advice. And all these networks of different kind of regional level and so on, they are of course subsidized mainly by the state or by the region, but it's free advice for the communes who cannot afford to have their own urban planning advice. What we have to stress, of course, here in Norway, we have private-driven urban planning, and of course it's very strange for us coming from France, I mean, because in France we have this idea of common good, and the public local authority has to be involved to steer the development of their city. They do it also here in Norway, but to achieve this in France, they will use means like the social housing policy, which doesn't exist really here. And of course, this is very important when it comes to avoid some segregation. We cannot only believe to the regulation of the free markets, especially in a city like Oslo, which is also now fighting, which has also problematic of segregation, as you mentioned. Yeah? So yeah, this is a kind of main characteristic to make a difference between the French and Norwegian approach regarding heritage and urban planning. Yeah.
But bringing that perspective, we do have a lot to learn from each other in the way of bringing something from Norway back to France, in the way of being a bit more loose in what culture can be, perhaps, and then us Norwegians learning also from the French in order to actually make sure that we implement and plan for this.
Yeah, of course, it's both ways. Of course, it's a lot also to learn for the French professionals with Norwegian experiences. Maybe when it comes to the consultation procedure. It's interesting all what has been done, for example, with the idea of barnetrock, which is, I don't know in English, the idea of involving the kids, the children, during the planning process for a new equipment and so on, or a new urban plan in a community. They will have a special action towards devoted to the kids, and this is a quite interesting tool. This is one example. I'm sure with the use of, with the opera, the idea of transform the use of a public space, it has been also now where it's spread also all over Europe. I'm sure it's another very good example. There's other examples. Marianne, can du hjälpa mig?
No, but I think it's of course, some differences are the Nordic model with the welfare state and equality, and So, but mainly, I think when in terms of urban planning, I think at the moment we have more to learn from France than we can export, because we are victims of the neoliberal.
And it's very interesting because during the French election campaign, some of the candidates are always promoting the Nordic model. But of course, there's so much differences among the 3 or 4 countries, and especially in urban issue, because Norway is the most liberal concerning urban planning, and it's difficult for French people to understand it, of course. Yeah. But if I just continue very briefly, so this is one of the idea of the approach of the French way to looking about heritage, which is a little bit maybe more comprehensive, and the idea to reinforce the city center and to promote also the integration of heritage within the different other sectorial policies, meaning housing, transportation, and so on. And every time you have some possible financial means, not so much, but it's possible to get finance some project within other sectorial policy, and which will affect heritage issues also. So it has been a promoting action from the French approach worldwide when it comes to heritage. If we continue. Marianne, you mentioned, of course, all this Fjordby. What I just wanted to mention to make the difference of the French approach when it comes to heritage again. Heritage is a matter of, is under the Ministry of Culture in France. And of course, it's a little bit strange that heritage here is under the climate, but there's some good reasons. Environment, because it's considered, first of all, as a resource, as like we consider the natural resources, and maybe because culture, heritage, culture or nature is more a question of it's really a cultural effect here. It's not so split like it is in France, where we make the difference between nature and culture a little bit higher, of course. And yes, so the cultural acts that we see now, and if we continue, this is something, of course, if we try to take another example, it's not La Villette, but I think it's a very interesting French example when it comes to the transformation of the old mining area of Nord-Pas-de-Calais, mining bassin, and if we take the the main new cultural institution, which is a decentralization of part of the Louvre in Lens. It's a kind of, as you see on the landscape, it's really a kind of UFO project coming down within a local community, and it's a kind of quite poor local community facing a lot of challenges when it comes to employment and so on. And what has been interesting with this project, if we take the next one, is initiative to accompany the venue of this big new institution to in a local community like Lens, with a kind of dispositif in a scheme to foster all the new local development projects. And a lot of all these new development projects were actually sustained directly by local inhabitants, meaning Lens has developed such kind of label, which name is Eura Lens, and they approve and they give also technical and financial support to local urban development project. So I think this is something we could also learn here in Norway. Why don't we use this fantastic tool of a new cultural institution to at the same time foster the local community with other kind of project? It has not to be connected directly with cultural issues. It could be housing, it could be gardening or whatever. But at least to use this power of a new cultural institution as an example. And I just wanted to finish that you mentioned Florida and all his babies all over Europe, and we have been working with my colleague Laima here from NICU now in a project in Poland, Katowice, very interesting city in Silesian, which is also a word from UNESCO as a creative city, as we heard this morning, but for the music part. And all their position is now to say we are shifting for being a former coal mining industry to be a kind of new creative shift, and to create what they called also this cultural zone, which is a little bit comparable with cultural axe here in Oslo. It means if we show other picture, big new cultural institution like a museum, a Silesian museum. After we have the big new Philharmonie, National Radio Symphonic Orchestra, a credible quality of music, and also a kind of sports and congress hall venue. So all over all this big new equipment placed at the same area in the kind of new cultural zone, but of course without any connection with the rest of the city and with inhabitants. So they missed it again. So, but we try to give some advice partly to this. So I mean, this is a process we are confronted all over Europe now.
And we will let that actually be the finishing remark. And we have then finalized this session of how do we work with architectural and cultural projects. And there are hopes for improvement. Yes. And there's a lot to learn from France and Norway and bring it all over Europe in the way of how we deal with these issues. There will be a coffee break now, which Erik will tell you a bit more about.
Thank you very much. It will be a small coffee break. It's actually not 15 minutes anymore. It's 7 minutes now, the coffee break. So you will take your coffee and bring it with you, because after the break now, we start 15:15 precisely. We will have one workshop in here, which will be contemporary art, and no, it will not be that. It will be artistic creation and social issues. It will be here. In the library, it will be artistic creation. Now it will be contemporary art and public sphere in in that place. It starts 15:15. I just want to remind you that if you want to join for different visits tomorrow in Snøhetta Agency, Kunstnernes Hus or National Theatre, you have to go online and registrate if you want to join one of the visit tours tomorrow. And I also remind you all about that 6 o'clock this evening, it's dinner and wine in Kunstnernes Hus. From 8 o'clock, it's art performance out in the garden at 8 o'clock, right, Agnes? Yeah, yeah. And then after 8 and after it's more drinks and dancing. So come to Kunstnernes Hus at 6 o'clock. But before you come back here or in the other room, 15:15.